Who knew that this movie, when you kind of learn about the subject matter and you learn about the perspective, um, I was really, you really take us on a journey. You and like Gary's candidness, or candor, if that's the right word. I was so surprised at how I don't want to say entertaining, but I mean it's a very entertaining movie. It goes some really dramatic, dark places, and at the same time, I mean, I guess we can talk about this at the top that uh, this movie is really balanced, really beautifully, and I guess I wanted to know when you set out to make a movie about this, how difficult is the balance to kind of strike?
It is difficult, and I think the brilliance of Gary
Mm-hmm.
is that he was able to also strike that balance in the sense of like we had, very funny moments, right? He keeps it light. He's an absurdist writer.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was also able to have him sit down and really be more reflective, contemplative. I think part of what allowed for that was the small team. Most of it was shot by one DP and
Mm-hmm.
myself. We didn't have the whole crew of people. There was one shoot where we had, two cameras. It was more the sit down on the chair,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else was quite intimate. So it really
Yeah.
allowed Gary to be Gary.
Mm.
So I was lucky in that. I leaned into his voice. And then I tried to balance, his voice with my voice,
Mm-hmm.
right, as filmmaker. And luckily we were so on the same page in terms of the message and not wanting to beat people over the head, right?
Yeah.
So go
I
ahead.
will. Oh no, I was just gonna say, matching sensibilities. I think they're even down to like the editing, the sequence that I wrote down. This is if anybody finds this notebook, God bless them. But I wrote skyscrapers as penises, like that montage where you're going back and forth or you're shooting. It's men walking down the street and the camera's level with like their waist or their crotch. And I even thought that I just thought the sensibilities are really beautifully married together. So I guess,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for noticing and saying, well, I guess one of the challenges was the elephant in the room and how do we, right? How do we uh, talk about it, show something without obviously having Gary take his clothes off. But
mm,
I keep this project from a previous, this is my second film, and my
yeah,
first film is about women breastfeeding and breasts, which is easier in some ways, right? People are more willing to show, and audiences have a different response to seeing breasts, right?
mm-hmm,
So that was the question for me. How do I show this? And I think
yeah,
what you're responding to is all the different ways I wanted to um, have the audience think about the body part and also have the shapes, right? Sort of, it's all around us.
I do even say like even when you hear this is not the same thing obviously, but when you hear about the disparity in how generally in media and film and some like television, the way that you see like women more naked than you see men more naked, and it's I really want to watch your other film now because of the connection in terms of we're talking about the human body, and it's I guess I did want to ask about, like, I don't want to say combating insecurity because obviously Gary is very open, but I mean like uh men are not Gary, but men in general as an audience. I think men are kind of big babies and they're way more insecure. I'm generalizing here, but I think men are way more insecure about themselves and thinking about prowess and pride and things like that. Is that something like in terms of insecurity? Did you and Gary have like conversations about combating male insecurity or anything like that? I'm just very this as I'm talking about it and as I'm thinking about the movie, the more I realize how fascinated I am with it. Yeah.
Well, there are definitely competing ideas of masculinity that I
Mm.
tried to show in the film also, maybe a little more subliminally with the, sort of the push-up, the boys doing
Mm-hmm.
push-ups, and then the young boys earlier in their gym class, and sort of what is masculinity? How do we think about it? And, sometimes I have that phrase, and we've kind of, I mean, it's in the air, that vulnerable masculinity. But I'm torn about that phrase the more I think about it, because
Okay.
it sort of suggests that masculinity cannot be vulnerable without us putting the word there.
Okay.
Because we got so used to a kind of masculinity that
Mm-hmm.
the type that Gary's father
Yes.
embodies, right? And so that's a bit of that contrast between father and child. His father saying, you have to be strong. And I think in general, as it
Mm.
comes to this subject, male circumcision, there is an underlying assumption, right, that boys don't cry,
Mm-hmm.
that boys will get through it. We don't have the same attitude towards female circumcision in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It exists in other places, but not in the US, right? So we've gotten
Yeah.
used, it's like they'll just get over it, they'll be fine. And that's part of what I'm trying to address here. Will
Mm-hmm.
it be fine? And why are we still okay with that? I'm really trying to get us to talk about this, as you've pointed out. Boys cry too, men cry too,
Yeah.
right? And I think feminism for men and boys, including men and boys in the conversation, will help all of us. So there's
Mm-hmm.
also this kind of competing victimhood sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to compete. I think there's room for everyone to be heard and everyone, to have a place.
Yeah. I'm always so just in terms of how we talk about masculinity in general. Um, I think it is so crazy that there is only like one type of way that like a man can be a man.
Yeah.
Um, I even had someone over this weekend. I put something up on like my Instagram story about like a college football game. Now normally I'm not really into college football, but the city that I live in is a very big college football town, and it was just a still shot of the 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 town where I live in that we beat our like biggest rivals. And someone responded to that Instagram story. They was like, "Oh wait, you're into sports now," and I was just like, "Why? That's not really the same thing." But it made me think about how we kind of perceive like the way men are supposed to act, and it goes all the way up to the top. You hear about how people in charge of this country say that men are this way, and I don't know. It feels like it's so rigid. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
rigid. What
it's
if you
very weird.
what if you are into sports sometimes? So
Yeah,
what? You
they're
know?
just like I know that I'm a very limp wristed person, but I mean it's I can also get very into God forbid I surprise you. Really, is kind of what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
we have different cell states. You can be, you can enjoy different things at different times, and you
yeah.
be boxed into something.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why we keep doing that. I guess I wanted to ask generally about how you kind of want to establish the structure of the story. You obviously spent a lot of time with Gary. I like how like there's even the one point where we're in a car and he's like, "Oh, I grew up there," and I was just really kind of curious. Maybe this is kind of like asking about how much time you spent with him, but also how did you kind of want to pinpoint a very clear narrative with this because I can tell there's a lot of there was a relationship really built there, but also at the same time, excuse me, how did you kind of want to really guide us through Gary's point of view?
Um, we did spend a lot of time and had
Mm-hmm.
to be sensitive because Gary's very courageous
Mm-hmm.
and very endearing, but one still has to give him space and time. Right? I mean, as a doc filmmaker, one has to do that no matter what, I mean, who you're filming. But especially in this case, I think I had to be very sensitive and careful. Guiding us through, it was important to connect these two traumas that happened because the first trauma really lived a bit in the past for him until this second thing happened during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. And then he sort of went back in time, which is kind of how trauma happens, right? There's a repetition
Mm-hmm.
in trauma, and sometimes we think about it so much in the past, but it lives with us in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So I had
Mm-hmm.
this idea that I needed to connect the first circumcision with the second skin bridge situation, and I wanted to do that in color. So
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't, I needed to connect it visually. Like there was that red moment, that bloody, violent
Yeah.
moment, and then there was the second. And so I took color away and then started thinking about that connection first and then used color again when I needed to highlight certain things. So that was, I'm trying to answer you about putting it together visually,
Mm-hmm.
sort of making it somewhat linear. Uh,
Yeah.
and so that was one consideration, how to use color to make that connection. Um, And then what was the other part of the question? I don't know if I've answered you. How did I
No,
want to
yeah, I
story?
just wanted to say, like, how do you
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah, clearly set up a structure of the story because it is such an emotional thing for him, and I can tell, I say this genuinely, like, I can tell that, how much consideration you gave to, his feelings and his thought process and a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And there's an end there where there is a self-acceptance, right? Where he
Mm-hmm.
talks about wanting to make this play.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. We talked about it for a while. At one point, I thought we were going to do that, but it didn't happen. So that's a clear kind of, end of this end of story, right? Beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
Middle is really sort of that dark, the
Yeah.
solitary and the dark moment of, is this going to be the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm.
Can this pain just light up a little, right?
I gotta say that I was gonna ask if it was difficult to find the color of hue of pink,
Yeah.
the way that it, like, it's obviously so personal to him, and the way that it's described, I can't even, I was trying to think of a way to how it felt like for me to see it. In a weird way, it feels like I've never seen how a color can kind of represent someone's feelings so, like, plainly because we're, like, quite literally seeing it, but also, like, there's something about that color that it almost felt like it was like I've never seen that sort of shade before. It was really kind of cool to experience that while watching it.
Thank you. I love that color too. I sometimes wanted more of it. At one point, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted it to go even to be on the screen a little longer, but we
Mm-hmm.
black.
Yeah. Mm.
And pink used to be a man's color, right? Mr. Pink. There's a store, a button-down shirt store called Mr. Pink. I think it's a British brand, and pink was very
Know that.
much a man's color.
Mr. Pink, I'm running that down. Well, because that's something that I'm sure people are talking about black and white too. But I mean, the thing that I like that I took away from the photography of the film is just that it just feels like, especially when we're talking about masculinity, like we're talking about, it just feels like we should. I'm assuming people are probably saying, um, like this is an issue. It's a black and white issue, but it's so much more thorny than that. But also at the same time, it also hints at a kind of a classic New York
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it's I thought a lot about just the black and whiteness of it in terms of how we kind of have this narrow viewpoint on how we give space to other people's point of view, I guess, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's interesting to connect it to that. Yeah.
Mm,
The black and white came about because I wanted to make it easy on the eye and be
mm,
able to see Gary's face and hear his words because he's
mm,
a writer.
mm-hmm.
And then it
Oh,
became,
that's cool.
yeah, and then it
Okay.
became about connecting those two traumas I mentioned with that,
Yeah.
and then some of the other vintage color that's in there. And what happened after I did that, I realized black and white is also sort of the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black and white and red all over.
Mm-hmm.
It became that kind of literary thing. And then with trauma, we sometimes think of trauma again as black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when we live with it, it's
Yeah.
color, isn't it? It really colors our
It's very vivid. Yeah.
very vivid. And especially when it's repeated, it's very present.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of that plus what you just said. So we can keep
Mm.
adding. It's fun to hear
Yeah.
people's, yeah, people's associations are always fun.
I didn't even realize that I always, this is probably going to sound really cheesy, but sometimes I go into, when I go into like a bookstore and I am I'm very drawn to specific covers. And I did not even realize that one of his books, I bought it because I like the cover of it. And it's sitting on my shelf out there that I haven't read it yet, but it was kind of crazy to me that, I bought something based on the cover of something, and then I picked it up actually right before I jumped on. And that's funny that you say on the page because the cover that is very colorful. It's got little circles and buttons on it, but
Mhm.
I flipped through the pages and I was just like, oh, black and white. That's so
Mhm.
cool that you say that, like
Yeah.
literary page, things like that. Um, I did want to say something. This isn't necessarily a question, but I wanted to say that there's a line that he says, or not a line, it's his life, but he says, I like that you leave the film on it is a very hopeful note, but it's obviously like there could be another extension of the story. Um, but the line that really stuck out to me where he says, there's still crazy soup up there. And I guess I did kind of want to ask, um, leaving us on like a hopeful note, but maybe this story might have, like I said, another extension. What's it kind of like to leave us like that for you?
With the soup.
Not
Uh,
with the suit, but I just mean like maybe an anticipatory feeling. I guess is kind of like what I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm thinking of how he's describing, um, maybe a play or something that he's working on. You kind of like, I feel like the film kind of revs us up
yeah.
to a positive feeling, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Well, I do think that there is a self-acceptance at the end, right?
Mm,
And
mm-hmm,
which we need. So I think as humans we need that bit of, right, of self-acceptance that we all struggle with. So in that way, I think it's relatable even if we did not have this specific experience.
mm-hmm,
So many of us have things about ourselves that we don't like or love or right. And at the end, we kind of have to make the best of it.
mm-hmm.
So otherwise, I mean, where do we go? So there
Yeah,
is that
that's true.
feeling. It doesn't erase everything else that came before, if
Mm-hmm,
that's sort of what you're asking. You can, I think one of my hope is that we can know our past, but live in the present,
mm,
right?
yeah.
So we're not erasing the past. We know it's there, but we really do have to live today and hopefully be informed. by knowing
Hmm.
our past so that we're not repeating
Yeah.
mistakes. So this film is about recognizing that, and it is looking towards a future.
Hmm.
I would love everyone to see it, but I especially want younger people to see it because they will be the ones who have to make decisions, for their kids.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a real sense of positive acknowledgement at the end. But also I just also like how the film goes into his history of, where he grew up, and he discusses how he immigrated to the United States when he was 7. And I was thinking, like, just because of the holiday we just came through it, that my husband's like nieces and nephews, um you know talking seeing them talk to their parents about important stuff. I'm glad that there are a lot of young people out there that are, maybe because they have the tools, they can question a lot of stuff and they want to know why about a lot of stuff. They weren't talking about this topic, but they were talking about something else that is obviously very passionate to them. So, um, yeah, I would love for them to see this. Maybe I should, maybe I should send them a link to it so they can check it out.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure. How old
yeah.
are they?
One of them just turned 21, and then her sister is 19. So they're in college. So this is something that I'm sure they would like to check out. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. I would love this generation. We have a screening tomorrow at the new school,
Mm-hmm.
and I just hope that as many students come. It's so important. And
Mm-hmm.
this is that age where everything is up for grabs at university, right? This is where
Yeah.
you're supposed to really be open and question.
Yeah. It made me think about, I was just like, God, I hope I was that curious when I was that age and vocal at that age. I don't even remember, but it was just like, yeah. So, thank you so much for your time. I imagine this is a film that does generate such a conversation, because that balance that I was talking about at the start, where it is really funny but also entertaining, but you really welcome us into Gary's space, and in a way, it's I'm very thankful that, like, obviously he can't see me or us, but I felt very thankful that um he like trusted us, that he gives us that implicit trust for him to tell his story. So I really like this movie a lot. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, just have a good rest of your day, I guess.
Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate everything you've shared, and
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that it touched you in that way. And I will see him tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Let him know that you really appreciate it this way, and that you
Yeah.
you were drawn in. Um,
Yeah.
that's so nice to hear, Joey.
Yeah,
Thank you
of
so
course.
much.
I'm gonna dive into his book now. So he's got another reader in me. So awesome.
Amazing.
Um, yeah. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
All
you.
right.
This has been
Have a good
great.
rest of your day.
You
Thanks.
too. Bye.